Hello and welcome to the Indian Dream podcast, co hosted by Sahil and Siddharth. On this show, we highlight the journeys of successful SME entrepreneurs who've built profitable businesses and attempt to learn more about what it takes to build one. Each week, Sahil and I will interview one such entrepreneur and learn something unique from their journey. How do you break into an industry with no connections or knowledge about how the industry functions? Well, one way to do it is by finding mentors from the industry who guide you and help you think through long term decisions. Let's listen in to see how Vikram entered the travel industry when most around him were shutting shop. We discuss how mentorship was extremely critical for him to bring Custom Holidays, his travel agency's vision, to life.
Hey Vikram, thanks a lot for coming on our podcast today. It's great to have you here. So, as an introduction to everybody, Vikram is the co founder and chief experience officer of Custom Holidays. So, Custom Holidays, from what I understand, you guys make custom vacations for people wanting to do vacations or holidays or, I guess, engagements or honeymoons, right? Correct me if I'm wrong about that.
Hi Sahil, hi Siddharth. Thanks for having me here. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully, this is a good fun talk for the next some few minutes. Custom Holidays is an experiential travel company. The idea behind the company is that whatever you're looking to do, and however outrageous the idea of travel might be, we're the ones here to make it possible. It's not just to book a hotel or an attraction, but it's basically to help you realize those wilder, crazier travel ideas that you would like to do, or local experiences which are not really widely publicized online or on other publications, and people don't know that they actually exist out there.
Wow, so that's quite interesting. So, if I was to go to Finland or something like that, you would say don't go see the Northern Lights, go see something more local.
No, I would say the Northern Lights, of course, will be a part of what you will see and experience. But what we'd like to add on to something like that is take you to a reindeer farm where you're actually feeding the reindeers, you're interacting with them with a local farm that's been raising them for the last 200 years, and that local experience is something that you will not get when you typically go to Finland, or you stay in a hotel which is by a frozen lake and you're waking up to a lake that's frozen, and you can do ice skating at any time of the day. And those kind of smaller experiences amongst the bigger experiences, it was adds a lot of value to our clients and travelers.
I also noticed that you had done an MBA at SP Gen, and I noticed that you did an MBA in family managed business. But obviously, from what I can see, Custom Holidays is not your family business. What was that family business that you were doing beforehand, and why did you decide to move away from that?
So my family business is stockbroking. We've been stockbrokers for about 25 years now. Second generation that had entered the business around 2007 is when I joined the family business, and I was actively a part of it till 2013 beginning. That's when I quit and started Custom Holidays officially. The idea of primarily shifting from a family business to Custom Holidays which was twofold. The initial part of the family business journey was amazing, but post 2008, when the subprime crisis hit and the subsequent crash in the market and the economy for a few years, it was a lot harder, in the stockbroking business at that point in time, which led to a lot of frustration, tension when you're handling a team of dealers yourself, and it wasn't the easiest of time. Also, in 2010 is when I got married, and that was basically the seed of formation of the idea of Custom Holidays. Because when I wanted to go for my honeymoon with my wife that time, we met about 17 odd travel agencies, and no one could really define and give us a program that we were looking for. It was very superficial, and we had to put in a few months of research and do the trip that somewhat what we wanted to. It was still a great trip. But when we came back, we realized that had someone been there in a professional capacity to show us just how much we have missed once we got there, and realized that we didn't have time to do so many more things. We realized that it's not a problem that just we face, but it's a problem that a lot of people like us face. And that was the starting idea of Custom Holidays.
Taking that, that step from ideation to getting people to ask you, to really starting and forming the company and getting clients, that's not an easy step. How was that journey for you guys?
I think the journey was great, primarily because we clearly didn't have a plan of what we were doing. To be very honest, we didn't. So we sat on the idea for about 2.5, 3 years of making a formal company because I was still 100% in my stockbroking business, and Julie was enjoying doing what she was doing, but she still wasn't sure if she wanted a company out of it. But it finally became a company because of the number of requests that we had for planning holidays and stuff like that. So one, I don't think, from an ideation point to an actual company point, we really thought about how we're going to go about it. It just kind of organically happened that more and more people asked us for travel itineraries. And that's when we realized that we have no idea of how this industry works, nor is Juhi nor myself a part of the travel and hospitality industry. We come from very different backgrounds, never studied it, never worked in it. So we didn't have a game plan. We just went with the flow, and we kept learning every single day on the job.
So this goes against a lot of what I would say traditional thinking, that you need to plan, you need to have your business plan in hand before you go out into the market and start getting clients and all of that. And this kind of, I think, feeds back into an idea from this book called The Lean Startup, where you're constantly iterating, you're constantly trying new things. Is that what you feel like you're doing a lot? Is that you're going back into the market and you're asking clients, you're talking to clients that, hey, is this something that you would want, or is this something else?
It started off with the lean startup concept. Definitely, it's one of those very few articles that I read at Harvard Business Review, and that stuck on very early on. I don't think we actually knew that this phrase existed when we started off with this concept, and in time we did read about it. Today, when I look back, I think I should have had a better business plan and have a better structure and processes of how would I have done things. But at that point, just the fact, I think that we went ahead with the entire idea was that we cleared the biggest hurdle that we at that time thought was a challenge to have a company, was that there was somebody out there who was willing to take the product or service that we were offering, and enough people of them that we were getting referred again and again, and those who came the first time became repeat customers as well. And I think that was the only validation that we used in terms of to go ahead and start the company. We didn't then think of, okay, we have this idea, but how can we now define it much better and get into systems and processes? Initial years, because we weren't from the industry, because there were no systems and processes, we were a lot quicker to adapting things. We were a lot more hands on. So we learned quicker, we made changes quicker, and we could customize and deliver the product much quicker and better than bigger companies which had a lot of systems and processes.
That makes sense. So from what I'm gathering is basically being in the trenches early on is where you really learned, especially since you were not from the industry. So without that early learning, you would not have been able to get to where you are now. And that makes complete sense. I've seen recently some of the way the travel industry works, and it is far more complex than what an outsider would think on how the travel industry works. What do you think was the biggest challenge that you faced as an outsider coming into the travel industry?
The biggest challenge I think I faced was not being from the industry. And now, when I'm a part of the industry, it's one of those industries which is pretty close knit. People have worked in bigger organizations and then floated their own companies, or they've gone and taken different roles. But eventually, everybody always knew everybody. And being an outsider was a lot harder because you have to prove yourself to people who inherently are from a system that thinks a certain way and is programmed to deliver certain packages or holidays. And then when you come as an outsider with a very different thought process and a very different approach to how travel should be given to the final client, I think it took a lot of time and effort to prove that we were a legitimate company to our suppliers worldwide, that we were not fly by night operators, that we actually knew what we were talking about and delivering the kind of holidays that we said we would actually deliver. I mean, they just thought at one time that we are promising the earth, moon, and the stars, but how would we deliver it? Because we have no track record in the industry. So that, I think, was a critical challenge that we had to overcome. But now that's thankfully done. We're partnered with probably every big hotel, luxury chain, service provider around the world today. So, but yeah, that was the initial first 4 or 5 years was very very hard. I do remember actually being told by companies across the world that sorry, we don't work with Indian agencies where that are so new and with your referral track. So once you've done something better and you've proven yourself, come back and approach us. Till then, sorry, our doors are shut. So we face that a lot.
So this is actually, I want to stick on this topic for a bit, being an outsider and coming to a new industry, because this is something that I have seen in a few of the companies that I track. And this is something, I was having a conversation with a London Business School professor the other day, and this is a question that kept coming up in that conversation as well, is that if you're a new company and you want to enter an industry, there are so many hurdles you face because you have to build trust not just with the customers but also with the suppliers, because suppliers just don't want to give you favorable terms, or they just don't want to sell to somebody who's brand new because they don't know what you could do with that product. What would you say to somebody who is coming into the travel industry or coming into the any industry for that matter for the first time? What would your advice be as somebody who's gone through this struggle and who has learned over the
I
years?
think the simplest approach as an outsider when you're entering an industry which is well defined and been around for a very long time is you may have an eventual goal of where you want to reach in terms of relationships or trust or a scale or whichever the case might be. But you need to understand that you aren't going to get there on day one. I think even myself at some point made that mistake, believing that I should get certain trust factors or suppliers to work with me or clients to work with me, primarily because what I was offering as a service or the benefits I was offering were worth it. And that doesn't work. You need to start working on a much smaller scale than what you know you can deliver, because people aren't going to trust you with big things. They're probably going to make that small step to trust you with the smaller things. And when you keep doing the smaller things right, probably 50, 100, 500 times, is when they're going to start opening up and giving you the bigger orders or bigger experiences or trust, whichever way you look at it, from their side as well. So that's the first thing that I think every entrepreneur should kind of buckle down is do it themselves. Secondly, the one of the biggest challenges that I think that entrepreneurs face in today's day, and I could be very, very wrong about this, is that we've been actually coached by business schools and tons of material online on entrepreneurship that a team is what makes it, and you need to have the great people here and this and that. But sometimes, as the entrepreneur or the founder yourself, there's no one better to articulate your vision to your clients or your suppliers to start that journey of trust and relationship than yourself. And somewhere when you get down to enough people who are doing that, you're going to find someone who's going to eventually become like your champion and your mentor, whether it's from the supplier side or from the client side, because they finally found someone where their vision of travel and your vision of travel, if my case especially, or it could be the industry you're looking at, have matched. And they've been around for probably 10, 20, 30, 40 years, and they've found somebody like a younger version of themselves, and they're going to take you under their wings to groom you. And I've seen that happen in most industries with most entrepreneurs, that they've eventually found someone who can basically mentor them through in the initial stages especially. So I would say these two things are very, very critical to build a solid foundation and take it from there.
I would second what Vikram is saying on the finding mentors in the new industry. I think that's extremely critical. And the only way you can potentially do that is being authentic, being genuine, and having that curiosity to figure out new things. And along the way, you end up, as Vikram rightly pointed out, you end up meeting someone who can see that spark in you, who can see that fire in you and say that, you know what, I'm not going to let you make the same mistakes that I did, and I'm going to help you in this journey. And that's extremely important when you're entering a new industry, of having a mentor who's done this before. Otherwise, it's extremely difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was blessed with some of the people I met, because I was a cocky person and a little snobbish when I entered the industry. Like I said, I thought that because my service and my product was so good, I should be getting a few things. And I've had some funny incidences along the way with people who eventually have opened a lot of doors for me.
This conversation seems to be leading towards the idea of networking, where you keep hearing this dreaded term that in order to do well in any business, in your career, wherever you are, you have to constantly be networking, constantly go out, meet new people, and I guess do new things. But is that how you went out and you found mentors, or what was your experience with finding these mentors who you had these experiences with?
I think networking is something that every company, businessman, entrepreneur will need to keep doing. And when I say networking, it's not just meeting a large pool of people, like for the heck of it. I think in the best way I can define it, with the way I look at it, is a large group of people who you are closely engaged with. That for me would be networking. It's not a small group of people; it's a large group of people that you are at some point engaged with. When it comes to my journey in terms of finding my mentors, I don't think I've ever actively gone and tried to make someone a mentor, or I've actively gone and aspire that XYZ person should be a mentor. I think it's a very natural flow where you will click with someone, and that person also, who's especially a senior in the industry, you might bump into them at organization kind of a thing. You may bump into them at an event that's been organized by someone. You could meet them at a party. The idea is that you just get talking and you realize that you share a common goal or a common vision, and it just starts the steps from there for your mentorship. I don't think it's a very formal process. It just happens by the way of you growing and communicating with each other. So one of I would say my mentors, who are from the industry, is a lady from Bangalore. She's a senior in the industry. She's on a travel agency for about 20 years now. She's prior to that been in Cox and Kings. Prior to that, worked in some of the biggest luxury hotels in India, like the Taj and the Leela. And it happened that I was on a work trip in Germany, and she was a part of that trip. And we've just got along very, very well because our ideas of travel going forward, or our ideas of how we can showcase something differently, matched very, very well. And we've been regularly in touch since there. And what she's done for me is introduce me to international organizations or events or opportunities, which I wouldn't even know existed because they're so niche, but they're fantastic organizations or events. And because she's been a part of them for so many years, and there have been a few situations where probably on my own merit I would have had it a little difficult to convince those people to give me an entry or an access to them. But a word that I know what this person is doing, and you can bank that the quality of work that this company will do is going to match the ethos of your organization or the event that you're hosting, has actually opened those doors for me, and in turn given me access, which has helped me become a better company and deliver better products. So they basically help you connect the right people, stop you from making stupid decisions, and open certain doors which otherwise be a lot harder to open.
Vikram, one of the things that I've realized, while finding mentors or having mentors is it's not a one way relationship. In some way or form, you have to give back to them. And I would love to understand how do you figure out what are you contributing to your mentor's life, and do you do this actively? Do you think about this, or is that something that happens over the course of time?
I don't think you can actively decide beforehand what you want to give back. I think it evolves with time. And one thing I know for a fact from some of the people who helped me getting there is that you need to be honest time after time after time to the core that they first saw in you. I think that's the first thing you can give back to a mentor, is to be honest and not change who you are and what you want to do when you are, say, at point one, and when you reach at point 10. I think that once you grow should not change, and that's the first thing, because they really appreciate that you stay true to your core. Second thing is mentors especially love people, like I said, where they can find something of themselves. I feel, and that's my personal belief. I could be very, very wrong here. That they see a certain amount of themselves in you, and as long as you can help them relive some of those things, or you just feel that earlier part of them, what they were doing, is great. And the last thing that I think that I am probably bringing to a mentor right now is, as I am growing, I am helping the mentor also grow, because they are realizing what more they can also do in their individual careers, as we discuss ideas more from a different perspective. a much younger perspective uh, as well as how what they learn can be again reapplied to me, and that's a constant learning curve for them as well. I think these three things, in my opinion, are what mentors broadly appreciate when they invest time and energy with someone.
I completely agree with that. I think I completely resonate with the last point that you made about them learning something new from your journey. I think that goes a long way also. Tell me something. One of the things that I've personally faced when you're reaching out to mentors for help is oftentimes it's, there have been months gone by without really anything happening, and the last time you spoke was because of something that you needed help with, and this time when you're speaking again, it's something to, ask for help. And it's sometimes you end up stopping yourself thinking that I'm asking for too much or I'm asking for too much help. Is there something that you do in terms of just regular updates to these people saying that, hey, this is what I'm up to, nothing, no help required right now, but just sharing what I'm up to and what customer holidays is up to?
I think a mentor is not somebody who you touch base with once in a few months. Because if it's someone who's you're touching in base with once in a few months, he's just someone who's in your ecosystem. You could reach out for help, and you're not sure whether they might or might not help you. For me, a mentor is someone you're a lot more in regular touch with. How I approach it is that if I am, knowing that I want somebody as a mentor, I make that expectation a little more clear to the person as well. That we've been having these discussions. I like where this is going. Will you be able to mentor me on these situations? And this is what I would like to get from you. So that's that expectation I personally set beforehand, and I do a lot more in terms of a constant update because I think as an entrepreneur in a company, if you're updating your mentor once in a few months, you're working too slow. You're not quick enough to survive in the marketplace. And for someone like me, I'm probably bouncing off 3 or 5 ideas a week with my mentor, getting shot down probably 95% of times that you got really stupid ideas, but I'm doing that. I'm actually doing that even today, that I come up with random ideas, and it's just a WhatsApp, at what do you think about this? But I think it's very important for your mentor to be accessible to you a lot more frequently than once a few months.
Do you think that sometimes the age of your mentor, the fact that they're from a different time when the industry was very different, do you think it sometimes holds you back? The fact that maybe these crazy ideas, they might work because of the age that we're in, but because they see the world slightly differently, they are shooting down your crazy ideas.
It could happen. I wouldn't be naive enough to say that it's never going to happen, but I think that's the beauty of the evolving relationship between a mentor and a mentee, where maybe at the initial parts, you're going to have to listen a lot more to know ideas, because you're in that phase where you're not strong enough to make too many mistakes, and the mentor is probably protecting you a lot more and just making sure you're doing the right things to grow to a certain point. And then once you're confident, I think both need to realize that it's okay if you. So I think it's something that will evolve with time. My understanding is that they do at some point bring in that weightage of a slightly different perspective, which can slow you down or put a brake on an idea which you think is great. But that eventually boils down to the entrepreneur itself, that you aren't answerable to the mentor, you are using the mentor to guide you. And in the end, it's still your decision to go ahead with something or not. I mean, so if you feel even after a mentor saying no, that this is not a great idea, but you truly believe, then say, I am going to do this. Knowing that I'm going to do this, what's the best way to do it? Let's discuss that. So then you change the entire context of the conversation, that I'm not taking a no for an answer. Now that I'm going ahead with this, you let me use your wisdom to see how I can reduce my pitfalls and make the most of this.
I would love to hear one of these crazy ideas that you pitch to your mentor all the time. It would be really fascinating.
I'm actually talking to her and trying to understand if getting into consultancy for the travel and tourism industry is a great idea, and basically saying that I want to make more companies like mine and effectively increase competition. Because I just feel that there is so much potential in terms of how companies who are established can just do smaller things and completely change the customer experience at their end for just some certain changes at their end. And it's stupid at times. I mean, that why would I want to do that? But I feel that it could be another different business as well, where I eventually get into consult tier 2, tier 3 travel agencies who don't have access to the opportunities that me sitting in Bombay do, in terms of suppliers or clients and processes or whatever to service those clients there.
One thing that I noticed while you were talking is that you said that you made changes very quickly in the business and in the business model. And it sounds like you're constantly thinking about new things that you should be doing and you're discussing that with your mentor. Do you feel like your stockbroking background, where you obviously you had to constantly be on the trading floor, you had to constantly make decisions really fast? Do you think that background has helped much?
In a very perverse way, and I apologize to my family business if anyone hears this podcast in the future. It did help me in a way because I'll explain to you in a way why it did. Till 2003, we were one of the biggest stockbroking firms in the country, and that's not to say that I'm boasting, but it was a fact. We had institutional business, we had client business, and we had our own prop desk. And certain decisions by my father that time, where we shut down the institutional business and the client business, and became purely a prop desk. And I've seen the journey of my family business from then on till 2020. It's not that we're not making money, but when you stop growing as a company, when you stop looking at ideas and stop doing a mindset of newer opportunities, you inherently get into a space where over time you're just going to keep getting irrelevant in a way to the market, because everybody else is looking at newer opportunities and changing. So even though I do see my family business making money for the next lot of foreseeable future, it's not going to be as competitive as it was probably 16, 17 years ago. And that's when I realized that if I don't do that as custom holidays, if I am not constantly trying to chase new opportunities and think of new ideas, other people are going to keep doing that. And if I just keep sticking to that one horse pony kind of trick, over time I will start getting irrelevant as well. I may still have few clients and I may make money, but I'm not going to be as competitive and as good as I was at one point in time. So to constantly ensure that I am at the top in terms of my delivery and service, I think there is no other way out but to keep looking at new opportunities and have an open mind.
And actually, and that's prove, if even if you look back in the last 3-4 years, that proves out to be right, because a lot of these, the Make My Trips, the Clear Trips, the Airbnbs, entered the experience market, right? They saw what you probably saw back in 2010 and tried to bring in a lot more experiences on the destination that you were going for. But by then you had moved, further ahead in terms of what is the future of travel and stuff like that. So I think that's really important.
It is. I mean, 2010, I couldn't find one travel agency to really help me. Today, I know at least 40 or 50 just between Mumbai and Delhi who are doing very, very good work in the customized experiential travel space. I mean, and they're doing very well themselves. So I have to now start doing different things as well to be relevant in times to come.
You mentioned that obviously your family business was doing really well back in the day, and you started off this new company somewhere between 2010 and 2013. How much funding did you get from that family business? That obviously, they have their own prop desk, so I'm sure they had a lot of money to throw around.
My father, when he heard the idea, said that you're crazy. You're not going to get a single rupee from the existing business or from whatever is in your savings account. So, Custom Holidays was started with all of 10,000 rupees, out of which 8,000 was used for domain name registration and hosting. And that left me with 2,000 to start whatever the hell I wanted to do. That was the only money me and Joey had in our pocket at that point in time. We were not allowed access to anything else, unfortunately.
Oh, how do you start a travel agency on 2,000 rupees if you can't travel to those places, especially as an outsider?
So I don't think anybody knows this bit of information, but to have that honeymoon in Europe, I pretty much forgave, and I said I'm not going to have a sangeet, and I said told my dad that I'm going to use that money to go travel. So but you're anyways going to go spend it for one evening, so I'm just going to take that money and make my trip. So that's what funded the honeymoon, and subsequently. on my honeymoon trip, an Alitalia flight got delayed. I got compensated 500 euros, and that became the seed money for my next trip to Singapore, where I kind of used 10,000 rupees for the flight ticket, and the rest was used to stay in a hostel kind of a thing and explore Singapore for the next trip. So, and in that time, of course, because Julia started a little bit of planning, you made a little bit of money from there, but that's essentially how we started Custom Holidays. And for the first 4 years, I think not a single penny was taken out, and we lived pretty meagerly.
So, Vikram, you've obviously had a very interesting journey where you joined a business and an industry that you were not really used to, or you that was very different from stockbroking. What would you recommend to upcoming entrepreneurs or people joining their family business who are getting into lines of work that are very different from what they know right now?
Whether when I was part of my family business in stockbroking, and I just started handling a team of dealers for my prop desk, or whether it was Custom Holidays, I think the biggest right thing that I did was literally going and doing it and not spending too much time reading or listening or just observing it. I think today it's very essential to just get down and get your hands dirty, and there's no better learning than doing. I'd heard about stockbroking and trading all my life, but it's very different when you get down to it, and same for running a business on your own. So I would just tell everybody new that it's good to take in media and good to hear things and observe things, but nothing's gonna change the experience you're gonna get from literally going and doing. So just do and do, because you're gonna fail many times.
That's really funny that you're saying that to me because I am a big reader, and also that was going to be my next question. What would your recommendations be for reading? Any books that have inspired you? Any YouTube videos, maybe, or any podcasts that have inspired you in particular?
I'm not saying reading is bad, Sahil, and I'm not, like I said, so it's not a bad thing. I mean, I've been a avid reader. I've been a voracious reader till recently. I'm not very comfortable with the e-reading concept, so hence that reading has come down. But I've always followed Tony Robbins. He's been somebody that I have enjoyed thoroughly listening to and getting ideas from him, and just the way he says things, the energy that he says it with, that's been brilliant for me. I have There's a book called Managing for Results. It's by Peter Drucker, and that's been one of my go-to books for business, because I think he puts down a lot of difficult points there that you would like to avoid as an entrepreneur, and he makes you realize that you need to be doing these things. So those are the two things that I look back and refer to often. But like I said, reading is not bad, but the more important part is what are you doing with that reading and learning. If you're just going to absorb it and do nothing about it, then you could be reading anything, and it doesn't matter whether it's motivational and learning stuff or it's reading Tintin. It wouldn't matter. So if you're reading things which are not for recreational purpose, make sure you're applying them somewhere. The idea is that, and it's not like you read today and you apply at the same instant. It's about reading in a way that you internalize what you're reading, and at some point you're subconsciously using that information and knowledge towards whatever you're doing. I think that's critical. Sahil, you've been quite instrumental in sending some books across to me lately, and I've been thoroughly enjoying reading them. And I'm actually, if you go back to a certain point in my podcast, I realize now when I'm talking about it that I gave the reference of The Hero and the Guide, which comes from your story brand book that I've been reading.
So, Vikram, last question from me is where should I go once COVID is over? What is your top travel recommendation? The reindeer farm or maybe somewhere else?
If you want a practical answer, I'm going to say you're going to be stuck within the country. And there are some fantastic places in India as well that we've also not been promoting so far, but we are very excited to talk about once COVID opens up. And we're going to be you'll be shooting you some ideas once things are a little better to travel in India as well. So I would look out for that. But honestly, I think you can go anywhere in the world. But my understanding is that people are going to start moving a lot more into the non-touristic areas going forward. They may land into a big city, but they're quickly going to spend a lot more time where the crowds are lesser.
You're basically recommending that I go to a reindeer farm in Ladakh. That's, I think, what I'm going to do in September. Thanks for the recommendation, Vikram.
You could probably go climb some walls or mountain faces, not walls, but knowing you were there as well.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Vikram. It was great having you today.
Thank you so much, Vikram.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for that as well.